Are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious? Welcome to the Coming Apocalypse. I'm Pastor Paul Begley, and we've got a doubleheader for you tonight. This is going to be exciting, believe me, because I just got done interviewing Shepard Ambellis for the webinar, and he blew my mind. I got a page full of notes. He just blew my mind, guys. It's insane. It's so good that I can't wait to watch it because Brock put all the graphics and all that in there. I mean, it's going to be amazing. So absolutely, it's mandatory. This is mandatory that you get your ticket for Climate Chaos webinar, which is April 23rd and 24th. Well, tonight we're going to hear from Shepard Ambellis. Let me put out, though, first of all, let me take care of this real quick. A shout out for noblegoldinvestment.com. That's www.noblegoldinvestment.com. Guys, seriously, we're in the time now where the stock market, who knows what's going to happen next. Now that spring is here, it's time for some dusting off maybe. The mower needs to be brought out, get it ready. The garden is a wreck. Your barbecue needs cleaned. Guys, you got to get things ready. And if retirement plan, if you're concerned, you might want to be with your 401k. What you should do is check out noblegoldinvestment.com. That's www.noblegoldinvestment.com, and check out a gold or silver IRA. And if you qualify for a gold or silver IRA, Colin Plume will give you one of these beautiful Carson City Morgan silver dollars, very rare. He'll give you one of these for free if you set up a gold or silver IRA. And you probably need to do that anyway to protect your retirement. You need to diversify. Here's what you should do tomorrow. Pick up the phone and call Colin Plume at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. And tell him Pastor Begley sent you. You'll be glad you did. All right. Good guy. Real good guy. All right. So we're glad you're here with us tonight. I want to welcome all 1,000 of you who have already joined us quickly. And tonight we have with us Shepard Ambellis. And then Mike from around the world. Shepard, it's great to have you on here tonight.
Absolutely, Pastor. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff to talk about.
We sure do. And the interview with you earlier for the webinar was just unbelievable. I don't want to, of course, there's no way you can share everything you had in there anyway, but you did mention the Deagle report. Now, this is an area that I know you have extensively studied over at your website at intelahub.com. But can you give us an understanding? I understand that its report has very, very apocalyptic guidelines and expectancy that's going to happen by the year 2025. Tell us about it.
That's right. So the Deagle report, Pastor, is a government-linked intelligence agency, and it works with many different agencies within our government. And the elites, the globalists themselves, like to use this publication, this report, as a reference for what is coming in different parts of the world. They can click in the countries, they can see what the future gross domestic product is going to be, what the population is going to be, and all this stuff. So the Deagle report is predicting a population reduction in the billions worldwide, but in over 100 million people, a reduction of over 100 million people in the United States by 2024. So,
what? Wait, you're saying 100 million Americans will be dead?
Right. And so people are saying, like, how could the Deagle report call this? Are these guys connected to something? Are they nefarious? Do they know a war is coming? Like, what? How would they get this information? They are privy to information that, because this is the publication that the elites really subscribe to, they are publishing information so that they themselves can use this as a tool and a gauge to know what's coming. So they're talking about a massive decline in the trillions in the gross domestic product of the country as well. And what it looks like is, if you correlate everything and you run the math, it all goes back to the fact that near-Earth asteroids and fireball sightings are increasing at the same rate, which tells us, when you go in and run the math, and people say, look, in 2010 there was 7,000 near-Earth asteroids that NASA knew about. Okay, like roaming around everywhere. Now in 2021 there's over 25,000, Pastor. Okay,
what?
So yeah, 25,000. But people have to, they have to realize, okay, is technology just getting better, which allows us to track these asteroids at a greater rate, and there's just better tracking, so that's why they're logging them. So I went in and ran the math, and I looked at the fireball sightings. So these are physical sightings on the planet Earth of fireballs, and all the numbers coincide to the point to where I could tell by looking at it that it's obvious we're entering a debris field. So these things really are ramping up. It's not their technology just noticing more and more, that we're literally coming into a debris field. Now, if you take those same numbers and they're actually compounding and getting exponentially, increasing exponentially, but if you just kind of continued at the same trajectory, by 2024, 2025, when the Deagle report's talking about all this reduction, we're looking at having 125,000 asteroids surrounding us, which increases the chance of impact.
So now this is going to increase between now and around the year 2024, with the Deagle report saying that there could be 100 million Americans dead by the year 2025 due to catastrophic, cataclysmic, apocalyptic impacts from fireballs and meteors hitting. Now we are hearing, we're hearing through Mike from around the world, who is revealing to us the enormity. Finally, it took him 8 years to finally tell us, because he wasn't allowed to, but he finally did tell us that this debris clouds coming are 2 million miles wide and several years deep. You're confirming this from the Deagle report. And we also had that little green file back, guys, when we did that, the Heavens Are Shaking DVD, that little green file that's got snuck out of NASA from those 4 retired NASA scientists who said the debris event was coming, and that by the year 2021, this year, Jupiter would start getting hit with them as they were starting to come. Is there anything about that in the Deagle report that you can share with us, or more information you can share?
Well, tying in with the Deagle report, we just know that there is contracts with other governments to house displaced citizens. So, if the U.S. were to get impacted by this debris, for instance, there's every day now recently, virtually, or once or twice a week, there's huge meteors burning into the atmosphere. They're breaking up. It looks like something off of those, deep impact movies or something, but they haven't really struck anywhere yet. They're also saying, look, there's a lot of space debris. There's Falcon 9 rockets burning up, but it just looks like there's more and more and more activity, and things are getting more rampant. In Nairobi, Nigeria, or Arobi, or I can't remember the exact name, Nigeria, a meteor had impacted last year. They covered it up at first. They said there was a truck explosion. They later were forced to admit the meteor did strike. Now, why would they cover this up in the first place? It's because governments were already talking through interagency, intergovernmental working groups that actually the U.S. White House had put out bulletins on this, and they said, let's meet with international agencies, other countries, and let's talk about this as a whole on a world scale, the G20 nations and whatnot, and let's get a plan for this, because they know we're in this debris field and they know what's coming. So when this one hit in Nigeria, they went into cover-up mode. They said, look, it was a truck explosion. They really just don't want people to know that these things are going to start dropping out of the sky. So when more and more do hit, whether they're spot hitting, or they're smaller or bigger, or they're causing tsunamis because they're hitting in the oceans or whatever, when that starts ramping up and the dust starts coming in, and that's another thing, the masks, the ventilators, what was all of that for? the production, ramping up production on masks and ventilators. It was all about ramping up the production on masks and ventilators because they're expecting a dust event.
Wow. And, you know, we've heard this 4 or 5 years ago, but, you know, we don't know why in the world it's happening. And so what you're saying is some of the stuff we've been going through, some of this citizen containment, some of these new regulations, I got to be careful what I say here, but some of this you're saying is anticipating what's really coming, the real crisis.
Right. So in my film Shackled to Silence, I interviewed Dr. Richard Urso, and I asked him, you know, what are these dust masks truly for? Because, you know, are they effective? And basically what it came down to is, yeah, dust. You know, ventilators are for dust. We also had a caller or one of my listeners email me, and they said that the FBI had showed up to a company in Texas and raided all their oxygen tanks. This company had a lot of oxygen tanks. They're really interested in pure oxygen right now. They want all breathing apparatuses, all ventilators. The government's hoarding this type of things for apparently for their personnel, their bases, and whatnot.
So, folks, there's been, of course, and we know the FEMA camps are out there, about 851. There's probably more than that. You probably know more and more. There's a lot of preparation for anticipating massive catastrophic events, folks. We've heard of Cascadia subduction zone. We know they're worried about New Madrid fault line. There's the concerns, of course, about the volcanoes, you know, Mount Hood, or maybe out in Italy. And then we got all these locations. Mike around the world's been sharing a lot of that information with us. Plus, we've heard this also from others. And we're starting to sense, Shepard, there's no doubt about it. We're starting to sense that these, I think you said that one of the government agencies contacted you and said that an imminent, abrupt climate change was coming. Can you share just a little bit about that?
Right. So a caller called into my show, the Shepard and Bella Show, and her name was Becca, and she worked in a government agency. And I spoke with her several times. She called in several times. One of the times she called in, she said, "Look, they're doing forensic accounting. They're closing out agencies." She was a Department of the Interior employee. They sent out bulletins within memos inside the department, and it said, "Look, prepare for imminent and abrupt climate change." And you know, what is imminent and abrupt climate change? Is that a pole shift? I mean, do the sea levels rise over a 10-year period? You know, if sea levels rise, say, over a 10-year period, is that imminent and abrupt? They made it sound really abrupt, like brace yourself, get your, you know, people could probably go find the archive and listen to it, but, you know, fascinating stuff. Meanwhile, you know, I hear you call the White House, they don't even answer the phone. The Biden administration appears non-existent, but we still could be in a continuity of government status or posture from March, when all 50 governors declared the state of emergency last year. So, you know, all I know is they're stockpiling food. They're getting ready for something. The Deagle reports saying, look, there's going to be 100 million, a decline of 100 million Americans by 2024, 2025 range.
This is incredible, folks. But this, so again, Shepard Ambellis is with us tonight. He has got a great presentation that's going to be on the Climate Chaos webinar that's coming up April 23rd and 24th. Brock, can you remind us about that? And the moderators certainly are helping as well. Maybe Brock's not there. Okay, I'm sorry. Apparently not, or he hasn't got that set up. Also, guys, we want to welcome a new moderator. Brandon is now joined us as a moderator, and we've already got Brandon. Her name there is called Beautiful Story. We've got great moderators that are just really doing a great job, and our crowds are really growing. And so we want to have enough help as possible. But there, Robo Mom's shouting out to Brock. course, RoboMom and Miss ZD have been with us a long, long time, even before Mike from around the world. So that's been a while. And then, of course, we're so happy with also with Susan Hanslick and with Michelle Davis and Love and Obey and Tara and boy, and somebody's going to slip my mind, and then I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. But all of the moderators, thank you guys so much. Okay. Now, and Melissa, thank you, Melissa, for getting in there. Shepard, let's talk about also this grand solar minimum. This is a concern by the powers that be. Is that right?
Right. So we've entered a grand solar minimum as of last year. Scientists say it could last until 2052. And what we're seeing is during this grand solar minimum, we're seeing a decline in our magnetosphere. We're seeing the pole shift, the magnetic pole shift. It's crossed the international date line. It's headed towards Siberia. We're seeing weakened areas and spots in the Earth's magnetic field. And all of that plays into what happened to the Neanderthal 42,000 years ago when they went extinct, because they were in a grand solar minimum as well. And essentially is what it did is it put them, plants in the crop failure. It almost triggered basically triggered a mini ice age, almost a nuclear winter type scenario. And, there went the Neanderthal. In 1315 or 1317, there was the Wolf Grand Solar Minimum, where, it triggered famine, crop loss, famine, and 25% of Europe's population declined over this. So these are serious things. So not only that, there's the potential for, discharges from the planetary surface when this happens. There's the potential of extreme sunspots, and which can affect global communications, GPS, and all this stuff. Ultimately, shutting down transportations. It's almost how they have everything set up with the lockdowns and what they're working us into, and the slowdown of the economy. It all seems to correlate with this. They're talking about in the next 6 years or so, or 4 or 5 years on the Deagle report, the GDP is going to be drastically reduced. So they're expecting this loss of people. Meanwhile, they're trying to make up for a loss of people by bringing them across the border to add more revenue. They're writing executive orders that they're trying to get to not only go nationally, they're trying to push the same agenda globally, where they're entering more women into the workplace, essentially getting more revenue going, and they're getting more workers into the workplace for when a future disaster does occur. They're going to have more people readily available to do tasks.
Yeah, so there's a lot of planning going on. There's a lot of white paper reports that you've seen, and done some great digging out information. And so there's no question, guys, we've been talking about this on this broadcast now. We've been on, of course, online doing live broadcasting for the last 11 years. And we have been talking about these very subjects, but not as in a more packaged presentation as we can now, because the information is coming together. But remember, Jeremiah Stitchin, I didn't agree with all of his theology, but still, Jeremiah Stitchin and Immanuel Velikovsky both wrote about these things 50, 60 years ago, and NASA is the one that gave Planet X its name. I think you said that, Shepard. So, yeah, tell us why we should really take this serious.
Well, NASA's been on this quest, so has the U.S. government, so have other governments. Hitler was even basically on this quest. They wanted to know what was going on. They were getting old information from all around the world and from different civilizations and old texts, scripts, you name it. Even in the Bible, there are things that allude to what is to come and to what's potentially coming back around again. And so they started figuring out, look, we need to go obtain these writings, this text, any technology that we can get our hands on, and we need to piece this together. Meanwhile, their telescopes are up in space. They got an infrared one up there they put up in 1982. It's detecting all this stuff. And they said, look, we got a brown dwarf star system moving in. We better like set up the world and prepare for it a little bit. The Reagan administration started gearing up. They sent Oliver North out to build these camps for the Rex 84 program because they knew that there would be refugees at one point in the future. And they started thinking about all these plans and then pandemic preparedness plans and stuff. But all of this relates to what could happen in the worst case scenario. So governments worldwide have been gearing up for this since the early to mid 2005-ish. They were really started going overboard with this, but 2010 they were really adding things to their underground bases, the mass graves, all this stuff, gearing up for a mass die-off. Basically, where do they put in? If there's a mass die-off in a certain country, it becomes a biohazard of infectious waste, basically all these bodies around and stuff. So they got to have places to put this stuff. All that ties into these mass fatality and pandemic preparedness plans, which we talked about in the seminar or webinar.
Guys, again, you don't want to miss the webinar. You don't want to get your tickets tonight. Okay, get prepared for it. It's coming up April 23rd, 24th. Shepard Ambellas from IntelliHub will be speaking. His presentation is off the chain. Also, you got Steve Quayle, Mike from around the world is going to be our guest here in a few moments. And boy, I'm having a hard time remembering, so that's okay. You can understand that's why I'm going through treatments. Okay, I can't remember anything. But all of them are great, and you don't want to miss it. It's going to be a great time where we're going to find a ton of information out about what's happening around the world. So please prepare for it. Also, Shepard Ambellas, his website is called IntelliHub.com, IntelliHub.com, and his DVDs got out. Shackled to Silence is incredible. Tell us about it, Shepard.
Shackled to Silence is a documentary film. It's my latest documentary film. It's a feature length. And I went around with Aaron Cole, a good friend of mine, another journalist, and we drove all over the United States, interviewed people from all categories, all on like what's going on during this lockdown era, like how do we get to the bottom of this? And what we ended up finding out is, look, the government's expecting a disaster. So it all ties into this. It's shackled2silence.film is the website. You can go there, get the DVD hard copy, or watch it on demand, however you do it. But you got to see it because, I have over 1,000 hours into this film. And, we have Dr. Jason Rand in it, the author of Return to Planet X, Dr. Richard Urso, a medical doctor. We got Jason Goodman, Crowdsource the Truth. We got Jerome Corsi, Dr. Jerome Corsi is in it. Lots of good personalities, good people, but great information, and it all dovetails with this, and you've got to find out what the government is truly preparing for and gearing up. Shackled2silence.film.
There you go, folks. Shepard Ambellas, we're so glad he's with us. Go to his website, IntelliHub.com. Shepard, I appreciate you being with us tonight. Some great info. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
All right. Folks, we're going to be right back in a few minutes. Mike Around the World is going to join us. And let me just say this. After hearing Shepard tell me about all the incoming debris that's coming my way, shelter me, Lord. I need some shelter from all of this because I think it sounds like that something biblical is going on with the signs of the second coming of Christ. And if you're not saved, if you don't, whoa.
Records for hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, volcanoes, and floods. Is Earth spiraling toward human extinction? Find out in our webinar, Climate Chaos. We'll examine new information on weather modification, man-made disasters, Planet 7X, and more.
Yes, folks. Give this world back to God. Mike from around the world is going to join us in just a few moments. And wow, we really enjoyed Shepard Ambellis. I tell you something, he's a great guy and he is filled with knowledge. And I hope you all enjoyed him. And he's really, really incredible. I mean, he held back. This was way holding back. And he had to hold back because what he reveals in the webinar, we can't talk about in open forums. I can tell you that. It's just some great information and great insight. Mike around the world is going to join us in just a few minutes. I want to welcome all 4,600 of you that are with us live. And it looks like over 1,500 thumbs up. We'll get to 2,000. I feel it. But tonight we're going to be talking to Mike from around the world about some very big subjects. This Deagle report, we'll see what he knows about it and what he can share, and also about a grand solar minimum that's anticipated to hit around the year 2030 and to last until 2052. And what does he know about this incoming debris field from the Deagle report that is going to apparently, I mean, Mike's been talking to this for about 8 years. I mean, he's the guy who told us about the red dust at least 7 to 8 years ago. And now this becoming, it's chargeable particles. Let me show you something, guys. I'm a little upset. Heidi's very upset about this. Airport workers have just seized 185 baby tortoises from the Galapagos Islands that were wrapped in plastic and placed in a suitcase. The customs officials in Ecuador have intercepted a suitcase packed with 185 baby tortoises that were from the Galapagos Islands and were headed into the mainland of Ecuador. Now, these tortoises can sell for $5,000 a piece. Here's these tortoises are beautiful. They're a beautiful creature and really, you know, they're very exotic and really rare on the face of the earth, you know, just in those areas there. Here's some actual pictures of what they found inside the suitcase. You see each baby tortoise was wrapped in individual plastic and was inside the suitcase, and this person was trying to carry them in on, and you can see they're getting them out of the plastic, and they're still alive. So they weren't, you know, this person was trying to get in and to where they were going so they could sell these individually at about $5,000 a piece. And it's very disturbing. The suitcase was a red suitcase marked souvenirs. And here we go again, you know, with people taking advantage of, you know, not just people, not just human trafficking, not just smuggling of drugs and stuff like that, but smuggling of exotic creatures and animals and things like that. It's just, it frustrates me. And then Heidi has another article for us that she's very angry about, and I am too, and that's 2 bears were caged locked in a dark basement in cages for 17 years. 2 bears in Vietnam. And what they would do is stick syringes into their side and suck out bile from the bears. And these 2 aesthetic black bears have been Asiatic. I said aesthetic. Asiatic, because they're from Asia. Asiatic black bears have been liberated from a lifetime of suffering. It's very painful to pull bile out of the side of anyone, human beings or animals. And here's the cages there you see the bear inside the cage in a very damp basement, very little lighting, no, you know, in 17 years, these bears have been inside this basement in Vietnam, and they've been using them harvesting their bile from their bodies. Why would you do that? Well, it's considered the reason they do this is because the bears' environment without any natural light, they had no exposure to artificial light even. The Four Paws veterinarians who oversaw the bears rescued and transported them. According to reports, the only times that Jean and Mo, that was their names, ever saw light was when their owners fed them or came to puncture gallbladders with a needle to extract the bile. Four Paws explained that the bile was used for medical purposes by the family of the owner. The group shared photos of the extraordinary rescue on their Facebook page. In the sunless, windowless basement, they had to use flashlights to find the cages, yet despite having been exploited for years in such horrific conditions, they were both calm and unafraid to meet their rescuers. And it's just unbelievable, guys. Bear bile extraction and selling has been illegal in Vietnam since 1992, and demand has diminished. Still, there is about 372 bears that seem to be subjected to this type of abuse. It's just unbelievable. People don't care to abuse other human beings and animals. They just don't care to do it. The Bible told us we would see evil and evil and evil, and it would increase, and it seems like it is increasing around the world. Guys, we've had a 6.5 earthquake that hit just north of New Zealand today, and also there's been absolute swarms of earthquakes in Hawaii on the Big Island. The largest volcano in the world is shaking and quaking, and swarms of volcanoes there. We just had another 5.6 earthquake has just hit New Zealand since we've been on the air. So that's an aftershock. And also a 6.0 rocked Fiji. And of course, that's down there close to the Kermadec Island where they had the 6.5 earlier today. So that happened. And so a 5.4 earthquake also in the Philippines. So there's a lot of shaking and quaking going on the surface of the earth. And real fast, just before Mike comes on the air with us, the solar winds are blowing 379 kilometers per second. It was 20 years ago today that an extreme geomagnetic storm hit the earth. Powerful CME slammed into the earth, and auroras were seen as far south as Houston, Texas, and San Diego, California. This was 20 years ago today. So we're dealing with a lot of strange things that are coming. Heidi's been talking to you about the worm moon that's coming. They're expecting very high tides with that. And of course, the wormnado that was going on, still I can't understand that one. No one can. It's a scientific phenomenon, really. It's a natural phenomenon of some sort that no one has ever recorded. And also, we're dealing with wormwood. It sounds like it's approaching, according to this report that we just heard from Shepard and Bellis. We're going to find out from Mike from around the world what he can share about the Deagle report, and also can he share and talk some about this grand solar minimum and all these earthquake swarms and everything going on. So any moment now, we'll be joined by Mike from around the world on this doubleheader night. And really, I'll tell you something. This is very, very, it's the Climate Chaos Conference that's coming up, guys. April 23rd and 24th is so critical now that to understand it. I want to welcome all 5,300 of you that have joined us live on YouTube. We're so glad for each and every one of you. And it just seems like, and you know, Heidi's really been doing a great job on those 12 noon shows when she's able to do them. They really are doing well, and she's doing a very good job. I miss not being able to do those, but I today just did my 24th treatment, out of 60. So, I'm coming along now. I'm almost to the halfway point. And so I just hope to stay focused on it. I'm going to stay focused on it. Don't worry about that. But I appreciate all your prayers. I really, really do. And it's just amazing, all the things that we're dealing with. Mike from around the world will be joining us here any moment. And I actually, looks like he's about 3 minutes late. Maybe that's my fault somehow. I don't know. It could be. Who knows? But as soon as he gets here, it's going to be very interesting. We're also going to talk to him about, guys, I don't know if you know this, but there's 10 Great Lakes that seem to be struggling around the world. Matter of fact, speaking from things that are happening around the world, what about Mike from around the world?
God bless you, Paul. How are you doing today, Pastor Paul? Doing good?
I'm doing pretty good. Florida's getting ready to experience a cold front coming in. We're supposed to get down to 41 degrees tonight. For these folks, that's
who knew, right? All these temperature fluctuations and different. Yeah, who knew? Pastor Paul, I'm glad to see that you're doing okay.
Yeah.
I know you're being preserved, but everybody might not know that. I know that, but it's always good to see you, doing good.
Yeah, thank you so much for your prayers and for those kind words, Mike. All right, Mike, we got a lot to talk about here tonight. We had a good guest on before you, Shepard Ambellis, and he had some really good information. He's one of the speakers in the Climate Chaos webinar that you're also speaking in, and he brought up the Deagle report, which I guess is a government white paper. I really don't know, but he really talked about incoming asteroid debris cloud, 2025. Pretty disturbing report that the government has. Do you know anything about that, Mike?
You must be talking about Bill Deagle.
He might be. He never said. Yeah.
Bill Deagle.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm familiar with the individual. Believe it or not, I am familiar. How I'm familiar with that, with Dr. Bill Deagle, well, that remains to be seen. But I'm familiar with Dr. Bill Deagle, but he talks fast, and he's got a lot of info on his head. Yeah, I'm familiar with that guy. He's I tell you, first of all, a lot of people are now we're talking about it, which is a good start as far as what we're about to face. And I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with everybody. I have held back everything. That one time when I told you that we were going to face winds of about 125 miles an hour, straight winds, I caught the reaction of most, and they weren't ready to hear that, to believe that. But as time has gone forward, they've been experiencing climate differentials and these new type storms. I think that people are now ready to actually discuss some things. I haven't really, to be honest with you, I have not put out any let's just say any information of any degree, because I know that it's when people, when they hear something, that it can sound outlandish, and it's very tough to capture. It's very tough to believe sometimes. So I have been putting out very basic things, because there are some major things that we're going to have to deal with. Somebody says I sound like a robot.
Yeah, Mike, you wouldn't believe it, but as soon as you start talking about this report, Bill Deagle, it really sounded like you did sound like some type of a robot, and that's definitely some censorship going on there. So, folks, hang in there. Just hang in there, Mike. Mike, it'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll be okay. Let's see here. How about that? Is that better?
Yeah, you sound better. It was definitely being censored. I mean, you're loud enough, but it was just being censored. But yeah, that's good. You got it up louder. Even that's better.
Well, I'm trying to boost everything here. Cell phones are interesting small devices. If you know how to open them up and kind of open up their circuits to adjustments, you'd be in a better field that way. Anyway, with some of the information coming out, more and more people talking about asteroids and storms and things of that nature, I can honestly say that I have not really talked about major subjects yet. And the reason I did not do that is because the one time I spoke to you about the high winds, I saw the reaction of the people, and they really weren't ready to. It's something they couldn't quite accept.
Right.
And so when I found that out, I said, well, I can't say anything other than, things that they'll be able to find in the public domain. But we're going through a brand new stage. I mean, a brand new stage, because eventually, think about this. Right now, everybody's talking about what could come. Imagine the day when it's here, when we're on air and the sky is lit up in the middle of the night, and they're giving explanation after explanation, and people can't tolerate the weather. It's when we're actually living in the change. Then what will be the topic then? That will come a time where people, they're going to have to be educated on what is, what took place, the truth. And believe it or not, everybody's going to find this out, Pastor Paul. It is the world right now is telling everybody that there's a paradigm they're pushing. They were shocked by it during the elections. They trusted in trending. Computer trending, supercomputer trending is what they trusted in, and it failed them. Why? Because you cannot trend human behavior. You can attempt to do this on a small scale, but on a large scale. At any time, it can always be interrupted. And that's really a reason why they have people's phones tapped and everything else, not because of information, but because they want to know what you know. And they want to get a jump in events as soon as you say them. They already know about all the archaeology. They have all the finds. They know about all the text, but they cannot interpret anything. They don't know what is absolute and what is not. So by having a pulse of the world, they can navigate several things, but without that spiritual insight, I'm going to say insight of insight, they like to hear what you have to say and other folks have to say, so they can always be protected from what may come out of you. That's the truth. Now, by saying this, here's what I would like. You ready? This is going to just mess everybody up.
All right.
All these expert Pastor Paul that you're in contact with, I need them to not agree with all the science that I would speak of. I need them to tap within themselves. And then, because something, I tell you, Pastor Paul, we have crossed a threshold. We're a long way inside of a threshold that will not reverse. We are in it, whether people were ready for it or not. The timetable of things is far different than what the data points say. For example, let me give you an idea. The data points and sea level rise. Back in 1990, I believe it was, 1990, about 1999, they calculated by all their bets in the world that sea level rise would go up to about 32 centimeters by the year 2050. This was, let's just go ahead and say that was in 2000. The report's in 1999. They said we would have a rise of 32 centimeters by 2050 from where it was. But there's a problem with that. In the last, since 1993, we've already seen 3.4 inches, and that's the mean value of the water rise around the world. That's since 1993. A mean value is not an average. That's not what that is. It is one of the reoccurrences of a specific numerical value that plots around the world. So it's probably right now, because I know the water rise right now is already up to 4.8, and this is April. This is April 2021. So it actually went up about 1.5 inches in 1 year. Right? It wasn't supposed to do, 2.5 inches in 1 year, and it wasn't supposed to do that. So things are escalating. We have an exponential value it's not accounted for in any simulation.
All right, Mike, we're trying to get your sound is breaking up and low all of a sudden. Is there any way, a lot of scratching? We don't know why.
Well, so now is it try that. Let me see something. I think it's signal based, to be honest with you.
It's real low now. You're real low.
It must be signal based.
There you go. That's better.
Okay, is it good to go now?
Yep. It sounds like it's signal based, and you're being censored maybe as well. So folks, bear with us. He's doing the best he can, and I got the microphone right there. I got it cranked as loud as it goes. It may go in and out. He may get censored. Just hang with it. Unfortunately tonight, I don't have Israel in the studio. Israel's under the weather. He's ill. So I decided to do the broadcast in my home here in Florida. And yet we're broadcasting through Brock Begley in West Lafayette, Indiana, which he's recording this broadcast. And we'll post it on YouTube. And it probably will sound better, plus all the graphics. So just bear with us tonight, okay? And we'll be fine. Go ahead, Mike.
Hopefully everything is it better now.
Yes.
I can see. I have some feedback on my end, and they were telling me that it was dragging, a bit muffled, and this, that, and the other. I have no idea what's happening between the cell phone and that broadcast, but anyway, we'll continue.
Yep. Go ahead.
So anyway, the values and the timetables that people are looking for, they're going to be exponentially cut. They're going to be cut. But they're going to be cut a lot. Right now in the world, one of the number one things in the world, what do you see America doing versus what China's actually doing versus what the Middle Eastern folks are doing? What they're doing is shuffling money around. Noticed they're shuffling money around and they're promising their citizens more money. That means there's an abundance of when you think about money, you have to see the truth behind money. There's no such thing as money. Money is a construct. It is a piece of, it's a control mechanism. It's an accountability system where they can control who can spend what on what, where they can control commodities, products, resources from the earth. In essence, that's what money controls, with some other things. But we're going to end up in a situation where a lot of people in the U.S. have money, no product. In China right now, that China is trying to work a deal with the Middle East for products and everything else. But what they're doing, the way that they're obtaining their products, Pastor Paul, is the same thing you do right before war. You don't obtain products the way they're doing it in the course of normal business and normal trade. That's not what you do. You do this right before an entire land mass is going to be decimated, because you have to take that food and store it in a specific way.
What?
Not only are they trading the food, but they're also trading the chemicals that keep the food frozen. And so with you clearly, if folks would if we wouldn't believe the paradigm from what they attract us with in the world, back off a little bit and begin to think by way of what the Lord gives you. Because I'm telling you now, this is what I'm looking for from people, is what the Lord has given them. I can see the facts any day of the week, anytime I get ready. I can see the stats. I can see the information. The one thing that people have that the experts don't, spiritual insight, what the Lord is revealing to them. And that's going to become the number one thing here shortly. Pastor Paul, I'll tell you that the science of the world is soon to fail. They will not have an explanation as to what's happening in the celestials. They will not have an explanation as to what gas flew up in the atmosphere or surrounded the earth and caught fire. Now, how could somebody explain that? They can't do that.
Are you serious, Mike? Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm very serious. But see, now I couldn't mention any of these things a long time ago because it was very difficult for people to understand that we're going to have bad storms. They couldn't really follow that one.
Right.
But now that they understand, yes, we can have softball-sized hail, and then we can have, winter conditions 5 minutes after the hail, a thunderstorm, and then summer conditions, 5 hours after that, we're good to go with 169 mile an hour wind sustained for, what was it, 2.5 hours in several locations. So now that they understand that can happen and that temperatures can rise to 155 degrees, now that they understand this, they are more prone to understand why certain events will take place and the magnitude of these events.
Mike from Around the World's with us tonight, folks, and I'm trying to grasp this, and of course he's sharing with us. There's some events coming that are going to be unexplainable. Mike, I'm going to shift gears just for a moment. We've got some information Heidi has brought in that's urgent to ask you. Okay. The CDC is closely following the outbreaks of Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Guinea. The outbreaks are centered in remote areas of those countries, and the risk of Ebola to the United States is extremely low. Yet the Biden administration is committed to working closely with the affected countries to end these outbreaks before they grow into epidemics. Now, what we found out is this the next wave? It says more than 60 travelers are being monitored for Ebola in 3 different states. 11 of those people are in the state of Kentucky, 23 people in Washington State, 45 people in Ohio, 4 people in Oregon. They're all being watched because they were in the Congo, and they've come back. They have no symptoms. They've been tested. They don't have Ebola, yet they are going to be traced. Does that mean everybody that they come in contact with is, what's this all mean, Mike? And why are we so worried about this?
Oh, because with more than that disease, but they know they have, during COVID-19, the COVID-19 debacle, a lot of people have been so focused on this virus and the politics surrounding a pandemic and a virus and economy as it goes that they have lost touch with and the doctors and the nurses have been overworked. But they didn't pay enough attention to certain things that jump containment. For example, we talked about something in Australia that it was inside of a person. That person, they lost accountability of the person. So it jumped containment. There have been several incidences where people have had highly infectious diseases and they lost accountability of the individuals.
Are you worried? Are you worried about Ebola? Is this one of your concerns?
Well, Pastor, I'll put it this way. When it comes to a contagion, I know that we're going to endure a few of them, not just Ebola. COVID-19 was a gauge, and I'll keep saying that it was a gauge. It was a gauge to help us, number one, deal with the ideology of a pandemic, to get us acquainted to the idea that, yes, we can have a pandemic. There will always be rumors surrounding some very real things. It's very difficult to tell if something is real or not. But one thing we know sure is that Ebola is in a different classification than COVID-19 because Ebola has much more immediate effects. It can scare people a lot. It can cause entire provinces to become violent against intruders. And we have a mechanism. The U.S. has a mechanism now in place, it's just about in place, where an absolute shutdown of individual sectors of the U.S. can actually happen and the people can be traced and monitored. That system is going up, and it must go up because of what's already running around. There are things, right, diseases running around already. Regarding Ebola, do you remember the last time Ebola was tracked to an individual that was in one of the hospitals in Texas a few years ago?
Yes, I do. I think it was like a nurse that came back or something, or maybe no. It was somebody who flew in that had it, and then a nurse got it as well. But in Texas.
What we ultimately found out was they did track somebody coming back from Africa, but the origin of it was very confusing because there were individuals in the U.S. that were nowhere near Africa, and they had the virus, nor were they near the individuals that came back from Africa with the virus. So they assumed that it escaped from one of those L4 facilities, level 4 facility that handles those type viruses. But there have been too many accidents in the U.S., too many people who have undercut one another. There's been a lot of internal espionage. You wouldn't believe the espionage that's taken place within this country. There's been a total breakdown of coherency and cohesion between these individuals that work in these L4 facilities and everybody else. So don't be shocked if 4 or 5 different types of biological contaminants the surface, and we're going to have to deal with them. That's something very real. In fact, that's real every single day. There's not a day that will go by that certain individuals will rest because they know the potential. They know that at any hour, a type of orange level could be called, meaning that people it's far beyond point for a pretty large province, and that they would have to do the ultimate just to shut that area down. So it's a concern.
Yeah, it's a concern.
But it's also something that's a daily threat, and it will manifest, and we're going to have to deal with not only Ebola, but several other contagions, like flesh-eating bacteria. We know that 2 hospitals lost the patients that were identified with a very ancient type of flesh-eating bacteria, and they were archaeologists, but they don't know who they were in contact with. They know it spread because a child had appeared with the same, and it only takes about 3 days for it to really eat your skin off your body. So this is, this stuff is not good. It's bad.
Yes, it's a concern, no doubt about that. All right, Mike, let's move to another area because I don't want to get too much into that area. But here's something very important. Grand solar minimum that could create microwavable sunbeams. And one of the reports that Shepard Ambellis shared with us in the webinar, his presentation that we filmed tonight, was that cactuses, there was a cactus and there was 2 or 3 of them that actually were scorched to death, what looked like from the heavens, and what they believe the sun at an outrageous degrees, over 150 degrees, it would have taken to have scorched these cactuses in a small area, even though it was hot out. So I immediately thought of what you said would start happening. And from what I understand is this grand solar minimum, which you're saying is going to happen somewhere between the year 2030 and the year 2052, or it could last 20 years. What is your understanding on the grand solar minimum? And is this a part of is this the biblical thing we heard the Bible say is going to happen?
Well, with that phenomena, where you're talking about the cactus plants being scorched, there have been an increased number of places that are probably conclusive evidence of plasma conduits forming. We're going to deal with those. I wouldn't be shocked if we started dealing with those at the close of summer. I wouldn't be shocked. Here's why. We have forces that are coming close to our solar system from another solar system or another system. Nothing is going to perform according to calculations. Here's why. As these forces enter, it's going to throw our well-kept cyclic natured universe is going to throw it out of balance. We're going to have to deal with new forces. Some forces are going to be totally out of balance. We're going to have to deal with strange interactions with the sun. For example, an observed interaction, again, is when the secondary sun that's coming in, the darker sun that comes into another lit sun, when you're dealing with binary or more systems, the lit sun starts transferring its particles to the smaller suns. During that transformation, if a planet is caught in the middle of that, it is scorched on one side just all the time. This happens all the time. You're looking at the exchange of photons, at the exchange of, you'll have gravity wells, you'll have infrared. Infrared has a curious property. When infrared is mixed with, when it's bound to a very high electromagnetic field, which is gravity, but one induced by a larger mass. The mass of the infrared is never supposed to be above a certain amount, but the mass triples in infrared, which means the intensity of the infrared is about 100 or 120 times greater than what it normally would be, meaning if you were to, you know how an oven heats up and you see the element get red?
Yeah,
if that were 120 times more intense, we're talking about a bound increase. If it were that intense, it would burn up your whole house. Yeah. That oven, as soon as it showed, would burn up your entire house.
Yeah.
And so with the sun having this same effect, that infrared energy would scorch anything it touched. You know what that means? there's a time coming very quickly when a person will not, they're going to break their necks to try and stop any sunlight from coming into their homes. Because if sunlight travels, in any light from the sun that comes into anybody's house,
Are you
it will
serious?
burn that area instantly. The curious property is infrared will go right through a window. It's not going to burn the window. It's going to go right through the window to a surface where infrared can be not, where it can, where it's not reflected, and then it absorbs all of that heat. So they're going to have to black out every single window, every single crack, every single everything, in hopes that light won't enter in, because if it does, it's going to, it's just going to fry anything it touches. And that's with infrared. This will also happen at night. Night will offer no shield against infrared, that type of infrared heat that's bound by gravity wells. It's just not going to happen because the mass is increased so much. Different properties take effect with infrared.
So Mike, all right. So, it's hard for me to grasp this, but I don't believe it. I believe it when I read about the book of Revelation. I read about how men are going to blaspheme God because of the sun will scorch them and they will gnaw their tongues for pain. I read about locusts coming out of the bottomless pit, stinging men and hurting them for 5 months. So there's some new technology. There's demonic spirits involved. There's manifestations happening to the sun. Here we go. Here's the question. Is Planet X what's going to, is causing and will cause this space events on the sun? Will that be what causes the grand solar minimum that they're talking about? In 20 years, I mean, is this why they're building underground cities?
Yeah, well, I think they're stocking underground. I think they're filling up these places they have built. I really do. If you look in the world, who do you see? Name one person that you actually see in power that has the people that just, they love the people so much that they have broken their neck to make sure that people are safe, that people are progressing in life and everything else. Name one person like that. Sadly, we can't do that. It seems like all the people who really care deeply about the populace, they're gone.
Yeah,
they're just gone. And so what you have left are, you have public faces, yes, but for the most part, you have people who are willing to do what it takes to earn a paycheck. I hate to say that. I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm just saying that if they didn't pay these guys, it would make it a lot more believable. But they're getting paid a lot of money to do what they do. And when you get paid a lot of money like that, you'll end up, those who control the money are going to tell you what to do. Pure and simple. So you really can't trust the integrity of these individuals so much, which it also lets you know that because all of your iconic individuals are gone. They're not dead, they're just gone. You don't see them anymore. And I even warned about this before. I said,
Are you saying they're just gone because they're underground? They're in hiding?
I told people this. Pastor Paul said this. I said this 30 years ago, and I'll say it today. I've said it throughout the years. When people begin to not see these iconic individuals in recent shots outside, right? When they see them indoors, when they see them behind these green screens, when they see these iconic people, you only hear their voice, but you do not see a shot with them and other folks. You better believe they're in a safe place. They're in a safe place. They're not in a place where your average individual can get to them. Something is wrong. That means they have started a process that will is going to continue. And I also said this: we're going to be left with people who are more like actors than actual qualified individuals to do their specific jobs. Now that's not down. I'm not downing anybody. What I'm saying is that there's a class of individuals. Type of quality that individuals have that is just non-existent in these days. It seems like people are on television or in these positions and they're acting. Yeah. It's like they're just going through the motions. I look at anybody and you can tell who's reading and who's actually speaking. I think one of the individuals that actually spoke, well, that individual they really didn't want. The rest of them have been reading. They're reading things, and they say the same thing over and over again. But something is different these days. We're not on the same track that we've ever been on before. There are plenty of things that are different, and folks have they understand. If something is coming, there are folks who know about it. If they know about it, Pastor Paul, they've already made provisions for it.
Let's just talk about this, because if people are already starting to be missing and just disappearing or going into hiding, that process you're saying has begun. Well, you wouldn't do that if it was 10, 15 years out. So we must be in a 24 to 36 month window here or something, because people just don't go into hiding this early unless it's actually this late in the game and we're just not aware of it.
Too many people died at one time. They did. By the way, if you wanted to take a person to another facility where they would never be in contact with people on the surface again, of course you'd say they died, right? Nobody's going to question that. You just say, well, this person died, and have your funeral, and there they go. They're gone. That doesn't mean they're dead. That just simply means they have moved. You know how many times they have done this and they got caught red-handed, right? Saying that people died. The public accepts it. They no longer question it, right. Except when it comes to, these musical talented people like Elvis. They question him, but we're talking about, people who actually lead countries. These people, all they have to do is say this person passed away, this person had cancer and passed away, this person had cancer, passed away, and people believe that. But you never hear from their children ever again. You don't hear from their family members ever again. It's just almost like they're just gone. So, and when you see civilians step up and they're running the space program, you know something is different. If civilians are running our space program, what else does anybody need? Because if you think about this, are we really stepping into the future based on our technology? Or are we going back to the Stone Age because of an irresponsible newer generation that's starting to run things? We're not, they're passing out money like it's candy. And when they start doing this, there's no accountability. They don't care about the money.
They're acting like, throw the money out there to these people, keep them satisfied for a little bit while we get our act all the way till we get the plan completely finished here. It's like they've gone wild. The printers have gone wild, and it's like they know it's all about over. Just throw the money out everywhere, keep everybody busy, keep everybody occupied, but keep them confined and keep them and it seems like there's this push for that. I don't want to go into that too far right now, but because I think that's a danger area. But here's the thing, Mike, what you're saying is that there's a plan in place and it seems to be rapidly advancing. And we were told, look, NASA's the one that said there was a Planet X. That wasn't us. NASA gave it a name. And we also stand there was even a military. There was a military operation called Planet X where they were going and getting old documents out of Iraq and different places. And you're probably aware of that. So there's a lot going on right now that's starting to seep out. And so let me just say this. There was one of the employees of one of the alphabet soup agencies, a whistleblower, came out and said that they were told, they were given an internal memo that said, prepare for imminent, abrupt climate change. Imminent, abrupt climate change. Now, I don't know what that would mean as far as imminent. I don't know if this is a code word to prepare for something. Is this ring a bell anywhere for you?
Well, there's first of all, there's a internal knowing that all of us have that something is not right. But not only is something not right, but that we're standing in the middle of something we can't quite identify. Right? Yeah. This is an internal knowing that we have, because the Lord is not going to have us ignorant concerning the devices of the enemy, which, by the way, is very important. But he's going to give us an inkling that something is not right. Now, all the time, we don't know how to understand what the Lord is saying because we don't really read our situations well. But he's always speaking. And if you think carefully, most of us have been preparing for something. We don't know what we're preparing for, but we're preparing for something. We also, all of us, are well acquainted with some of the dynamic changes in the weather, right? We're also very acquainted with some of the new technologies that came from CERN. Now, the topic of CERN has been dropped from the public for a long time.
Yeah, I wonder why is that happening? Where did CERN go?
Because of, well, they have made some major advances. And when you make advances, when you find things, right, you publish them, you say it, you give a hint to those who would like to hear, because keep in mind, they also have to speak to people. If I ran some sort of an agency and I had people out there that I was looking after that were, my employees, but I can never speak to them personally. And they can never speak to me personally. They can never call me. I can never call them. The one way I would communicate is through media. I do that through media. So there are actual keywords in media that mean a lot. Okay. A leak, hear me out. There's no such thing as a leak. There's no such thing as somebody got away with a paper, got away with this, or got away with that. These things are purposed. And sometimes, often they're true, but also they're communications for those who sit on the outskirts of all these agencies to receive information. Because they have operatives all over the place, like the word full stop. That is an actual communication. Full stop means exactly what it means. Full stop. That means everything is about to change. That's what it actually means. That's what full stop means.
Stop.
You'll hear that began. I mentioned that, and yeah. I give out things some years before they come, but about you do. What was I think for COT people, it's about 3 or 4 years before it ever started. I said, listen, remember this phrase, full stop. 3 or 4 years later, or 4 or 5 years, or whatever it was, President Obama, where was he? He was during that conference about the weather. He was overseas, and he said full stop. Not only him, all the presidents have said full stop, and all the vice presidents have said full stop. All of them, each and every one of them. President Trump said full stop.
Yeah.
He said full stop. Mike Pence said full stop, because it actually means it means exactly what it states. Everything is about to halt. Everything. And when I say everything, that's inclusive of everything. That means even life will halt, right? That means a sudden and abrupt change. That's what that means. Now anytime they talk in association with the climate, you're going to hear full stop follow those talks. You're going to hear that. I ask people to remember that, because there's something they need to know. And if I could have given them a hint, that would have come to fruition, where they could hear it and actually say, okay, that's real. So what comes after that? Then I would have their attention, because there's coming a time, Pastor Paul, when shows like yours will probably mean life or death to somebody out there on the street.
Yeah.
That's what it's coming to.
Yeah.
And that's why with great responsibility, that some of the stories that come forward, there are a lot of things I don't say yet, because timing is everything. And, but there are certain things people need to know. First of all, they need to know this is not hogwash. This isn't some ploy for any other purpose than to help people to realize something huge is a change that will change everything that's coming. It's almost like telling somebody that Jesus is coming back. They hear that, they've heard it so much, it means nothing. Sad to say, they've heard it so much, it means nothing. But when you talk about climate change, and then you introduce, you might want to not go out of your front door on this day. Well, why is that? Well, because in your area, you're going to have a static storm. I've never heard of that. It's not real. But sure it is. You stick your hand on metal and you're going to find out what a static storm is. Meaning, imagine a place where over 3,000 lightning strikes would hit in a small area like a neighborhood, and do this in the frame of about, 15 minutes. Can you imagine that? And it struck somewhere in that area 15 minutes straight. The ground would look pitted and pummeled. The people there would be damaged, frightened, scared, with post-traumatic stress disorder, the whole nine. But we're dealing, now imagine this on a global scale. Just imagine this on a global scale. All it would take is 11 inches of one of our atmospheres to drop, and we would have that all over the earth. 11 inches would make that difference. 11 inches would make that difference, Pastor Paul. If one of the atmospheres drops 11 inches, That's what it's going to look like all over the face of the earth. Do you see how delicate this earth is? Now, we have major things coming, but these major things coming are going to make major changes, not minor. 11 inches is not a major change. It's a minor change, yet it's been held for all these thousands of years. And we're going to have we're going to have huge changes, not minor changes. So instead of 11 inches, imagine maybe, I don't know, imagine about 500 feet. That's a big difference from 11 inches. This is what we're facing. And to get that scale across to people before the time comes, it's almost like you have to, it's a step-up thing, and it really takes searching the Lord to see what people can actually take.
So what you're saying, Mike, is this atmospheric compression that you've been talking about now for 5 or 6 years, and we're starting, and that's what you said would cause these straight line winds. When you first threw out 125 to 150 mile an hour straight line winds, I remember you saying that. It was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought, that's insane. What in the world's going to all of a sudden make that happen? I had no idea that there was such a thing as atmospheric compression, and that's being caused because of the charged particles, because of the iron oxide and all these dust particles that are pushing down. That means that as you've explained, that it's heavier. And that means the jet stream is getting lower to the surface, which is creating extreme weather conditions and hail, also big winds and hail. So all the things you said about 5 or 6 years ago, we're now experiencing now. We see that. Now I go to the Bible. It says there's going to be hail and brimstone, and there's going to be the sun will be darkened and the moon will look like blood and the stars will stop their shining. And so I keep thinking, well, what in the world would block out the sun and block out the stars? Well, dust. Dust could do it. Crazy weather patterns that you're talking about, extreme from hot to cold. And the Bible talks about these things. So, and the meteorites and the deep impacts and wormwood. Really what you're saying is what the Bible says. It's going to happen, and it may happen. And people can't deal with it. But first of all, they don't believe the Bible. So they say, oh, here he goes with the Bible. I don't want to hear him preach about Revelation. That guy's nuts. But really, you can't share everything fast enough because people can't comprehend it or just can't believe it. We got to give it in bits and pieces.
Yeah, it'll be lost if I say anything. For example, all of us we know about the trumpets, and we know about the seals. Yep. On one of the trumpets, when they were on one of the trumpets right before the fifth angel sounds, something gets in the way of earth and the rest of the sky. If you read that specific trumpet, it says 1/3. It looked like 1/3 the sky had been smitten. All these things were smitten. Right. If you're standing on earth, and to you, it looks like 1/3 of the moon is smitten, 1/3 of the sky is smitten. You stop right there. How can a chunk of the sky be missing, and the moon and the sun? Well, that's easy. If something is in the way of earth and everything else, right. If something has parked itself close to us. Now, how could anything park itself close to us? And see, this is where stories like this come to bear. There was a time when Mars interacted with Earth by way of sheer mass to mass. It interacted with Earth. There was a time when Jupiter took up half of the sky, right? Half of it, not just a little piece, but half of the sky. There was also a time when Saturn took up 1/3 of the sky. Imagine seeing Saturn, 1/3 of Saturn. Now, this is from Earth. That means Earth has not always had this orbit. That means it's going to change. Something is going to shift us right out of the orbit that we're in into a brand new paradigm, and nothing will go back to normal. And this is what folks are not ready for, but the elite, they're getting ready for it. They know that we're not going to be in the same position. Most people are preparing for their own apocalypse, but everything burns up, but we're still pretty much stable. Now, we're going to be so far from stable, it's not funny. In fact, Earth will not support life as we know it, given the times that are coming. That's quickly going to come to an end, and they know this. Earth won't have the same orbit. That means all the forces on Earth are going to be subject to different forces externally from it. We're going to deal with a different type of weather system. We're going to deal with sunlight being different than it was. There's a time in the Bible when the sun no longer lights on the people of Earth, but the light comes from God the Father, not from the sun. There's a time when darkness reigns over everything. There's a time when nobody can go outside. There was a time on Earth in recent times that people reported they could not breathe all over the face of the earth. These are findings that they snatch and they go classify. You know, they don't want people to find this stuff out. So there are gaps in the archaeological record in human history. Why? Because there are things in there they can't explain. How could anybody explain all of a sudden people around the world are writing, it's so difficult to breathe. It's so difficult to breathe. They're going to snatch that stuff up and let no one see it. Classify it, burn it, do what they have to do. They're not going to let people see it. Why? Because if that were to ever get out, that would change everybody's view about life, period. And then they would become serious. And where would they go? To the Bible. They would say, wait a minute, science has told us nothing about this. We don't even have all the facts. We need another source we can trust in. That's precisely what would happen. And that's precisely what they don't want to take place. They don't want anybody running to the Bible to corroborate anything they have going on inside. So, you know, there are going to be some unexpected, unbelievable things that happen.
You know, the Bible says, you're right, Mike, the Bible says that the heaven, listen to this, folks. This is Revelation chapter 6. And you think about this. Mike's telling us, there's stuff going to happen you're not going to even believe. You know, this, that. Okay, Bible says, Revelation 6:12. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal. Now remember, the wrath of God comes out on the seventh seal. Okay? So when he opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she's shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll. How? What? And then when it rolled together, and every mountain and every island were moved out of their places, and the kings of the earth, here we go, the elitist, and the great men, the rich men, the chief captains, the mighty men, every bondman, every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. And they said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Now they're saying this before the wrath begins. So there's this, Mike, there's a catastrophic, cataclysmic, apocalyptic events of the earth and sky and universe of biblical proportion. Are you explaining that? Is that what you're defining right here?
Well, that's one. 5 times they say this has happened, Pastor Paul, 5 times. But with a twist, with all of what's hidden out, they know that each time, this time that we're going through is so different from the other times that they really definitively believe, even the unbelievers know this must be the last time. This is based on what they can see in the heavens. Because it's one thing to have one passing body, you know, pass the earth, or the earth to experience a catastrophic flood, or for the earth to be burned up through volcanism. All these things when celestial objects pass. But in every system that has more than one sun, they have about 6 cycles to them that are deadly. 6 deadly cycles. Each are just total, you know, they change everything. I mean, everything. They have observed so much over this short amount of time through the optics that they have. They know that Earth just simply probably won't survive this one. You know, this is not going to be like the last ones. They have the geological record of all cataclysms found in the earth. They dug them all up. They can see them. They have analyzed them, right? This time is unlike any other time because there are elements involved in each nobody's discussing. There are different, we're going to deal with a different type of reality. Each time they hit, everybody's thrust into a different type of reality. They also know they were all abrupt. They came with subtle signs, right? And then all of a sudden, you thought there was a buildup to a great crescendo, right? Wrong. There were these abrupt signs, and then wham, it smacked us. It always comes faster every time it comes. So the time is cut short each time this happens. This time, for example, and I keep saying this, if something were way outside of Pluto, And they would calculate the speed and everything and say, well, guys, we don't have to worry about this we have at least 22 years, right? And then we're outside of Pluto. Here's the difference with the binary system. If we saw something 22 years out from hitting the Earth, each day you would have to cut that time in half. So at first it'd be 22 years, cut it in half, 10 years the next day. Cut that in half, right? And then you're dealing with 5 years. But you would have to cut it off in portions like that each day. That means the time it would take for it to get from there to here would be shortened every single day. Because as a binary star moves closer to the other star, it speeds up incredible. It gets to an incredible speed. And then once it makes that perihelion, it's going so fast and that the solar system that's traveling with it and the debris traveling with it is just a collision. Now, we probably may not with our eyes see the second sun, but we will see some of the systems that travel with it. And by the way, that will likely absolutely be confirmed.
When you say the second sun, in other words, we probably won't see this binary planet, this planet X, Nibiru, whatever you want to say, but it's going to go by so fast on the outskirts of our solar system. But with the debris, the shaking of the heavens, the events it's going to cause,
experience that.
Yeah,
and that means debris. That means any planets that are in that system that come with it. We could experience that. We have unknown types of rocks in our solar system that don't come from any matter from our solar system. They operate by strange physics. So in essence, they were not born here. We have long-term objects that have come by Earth only twice. And the only reason we know twice is because half of them are inbound and they're quite large. They're as large as the moon and they're headed here. We're talking about some big boys are headed here. And once they, these objects, their elliptical orbit is so long, right, that that we're not in some sort of a singular system, that we're in a very different, we're in a binary system. And in fact, most of the observed stars, I believe the ratio is about 65% are binary or more, and the rest are single stars. But every time they look closer, what do they find? A companion to the single star. So it seems like in existence, the rule is to have more than one sun. That's what it looks like in the universe. The closer they look, it seems like it's a general rule.
You talked last week about water rising, things like this. They're going to happen. Folks, hang on just a second. There's almost 7,000 of you here right now, and I just want you to be sure you understand that Climate Chaos webinar that's starting on April 23rd and 24th is going to be seriously one, maybe the best and most informative, and maybe the most prophetic is really the word I'm looking for, because what we're hearing from everywhere, Gil Brazard, Steve Quayle, Mr. BB333, all these people that are going to be in this, Mike Around the World, you just need to get your ticket.
Records for hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, volcanoes, and floods. Is Earth spiraling toward human extinction? Find out in our webinar, Climate Chaos. We'll examine new information on weather modification, man-made disasters, Planet 7X, and more. Paul Begley explains their biblical significance, and Mark Charles Begley presents his latest film. Climate Chaos arrives April 23rd. Get your tickets now. Every year we see records for hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, volcanoes, and floods. Is Earth spiraling toward human extinction? Find out in our webinar, Climate Chaos. We'll examine new information on weather modification, man-made disasters, Planet 7X, and more. Paul Begley explains their biblical significance, and Mark Charles Begley presents his latest film. Climate Chaos arrives April 23rd. Get your tickets now.
Seriously, guys, get your tickets now. And oh, by the way, the V conference, the DVDs have just arrived. So we're going to be shipping those out. Get ready for those. Look in the mail. Yours is coming to you. Get ready. Those are going to be flying out the door. If you haven't ordered yours, you want to order it right now, okay? Because we're going to be shipping them out as absolutely hot hot shipping. Mike, we're dealing with a lot of things here happening. It's coming upon us quickly. And the gospel of Jesus Christ urgently has to get out. Do you believe, I feel my spirit that there's going to be, with the acceleration of events and manifestations of chaos that's coming, that there's also a great last day revival that's coming, an urgency, and that we're going to have to keep preaching through the trepidation, the fear. Do you see that? We're going to have to try to show people there's a better way. There's still hope in Christ. Do you see a mighty move of God?
Pastor Paul, I tell you what, I have always been a believer that, one day, especially now, the Lord just lays some pretty heavy things in my heart, and this is one of them, that science will begin to fail the masses. It's going to begin to fail. And the people in your lives, those Christians out there, they've talked, they know who you are. They've talked about you. They said, well, they're different than us. Let's go over here. Let them stay over there. But when science fails, when the public and their experts have no conclusion or no answers to what's happening, they're coming to find the Christians. Christians have to be ready. See, right now, when we're kind of cut loose on our own, this is our learning time, our refinement time. This is where we get together and really learn about God's word and really walk in God's word, because they will come. And when they come, they're not going to ask baby questions. They're going to point up to the sky and say, did God tell you about that? Am I really going to hell? I've had this question in my life so many times. When it really gets rough, people will say, hey, I know you're a Christian. Am I going to hell if I die? They don't want any games. They don't want
they want the truth.
They want the answer, right? And so, but I've learned a valuable lesson that in times of peace, relative peace, like what we're going through, don't waste your time being caught into the throes of men, which will always be, but refine yourself and station yourself in Christ and Christ alone. Be careful not to drift away from Christ.
Amen.
Anchor yourself, station yourself in Christ. Be ready for those people that are coming to you, because then after that, the Lord is coming back, and he told us, are we going to be ready for his return? Because he's not coming back for just anybody. He's coming back for a specific type of people, right? He'll present to himself a glorious church without spot or wrinkle. So those who did not resist Jesus of Nazareth, those are the ones that are going to be ready for his return. So none of us should be bored. All of us should be using our time wisely, with great understanding and everything else, to prepare ourselves for what's coming. Because in the scheme of things, Pastor Paul, we do not have enough time for what it takes to be completely ready. We don't.
This is why Jesus said, he said, look on you say there's 4 months till harvest. I say, look on the fields, they're white, all ready for harvest. And he said, pray ye to the Lord of the harvest to send forth more laborers into the vineyard. And so this is the time, the harvesting now, to get and it's for every one of us. We got to all cleanse our souls and be not double-minded. Okay. And get it locked in that you're going to be a Christian. You're going to serve Jesus Christ. You're going to live for the Lord. You're going to walk in the joy in the midst of the sorrow. You're going to be victorious in the jaws of defeat. And really, you're going to do it through the blood of Jesus Christ and shine the good light, because it's going to get dark, isn't it, Mike?
That's right. It will get dark. And you know what, Pastor? Right now is a time that people will reap. This is a reaping time. Yes. We've sown quite a bit. This is the time. We always reap before we need it. The Lord will have us reap before we absolutely need it. And this is that time. And if nobody has ever sowed, I'm telling you now, the Lord already said that one will overtake the other, meaning before you can get something in the ground, you begin to reap from what you had a heart to implant in the ground.
Right.
And people are going to need, because in a time of great calamity, you'll need mercy. You'll need grace. You'll need a little extra, right? And the Lord's going to have that for his people who have sown those things. So I tell you, be wise. So good. But listen, the reaping has already begun. You can still sow, but I'm telling you, the reaping is beginning, Pastor Paul.
Amen.
And a lot of people, they're going to miss the entire season. They will. They're going to miss it. Why? Because they leaned unto their own understanding. I had to learn that hard lesson. Mike, don't lean to what you think is true. Seek the word of God for what is true. Don't lean to what you think is true. Don't do that, because I've done that before and I have seen the contrast.
Yes.
When I do it the Lord's way and the Lord's timing, based upon the Lord's word, I have the Lord's results. I have my results if I do it my way. I don't want my results.
No.
I want the Lord's results, right?
Yeah.
So I had to learn that lesson. And I tell you, he already said, try me. Didn't he say, try me? Prove me. He said, prove me. See if it's real or not. See if it's real. Because I do not live in fear. Thank God I don't live in fear. I don't live like the average person, because I crazily believe in Christ Jesus and his word, and I will never move away.
You're sold out, Mike. You're just completely sold out to Jesus, you know, and folks, I'm serious. Preach it, Mike. That's the way to do it. I'm telling you, folks, it's the last days and we're running out of time, including this broadcast. Mike, I got to let you go, but can I see you next Thursday on here?
Lord willing, I'll be here, Pastor Paul. God bless you, brother.
God bless you, brother. Keep going. Pour it on them. Amen.
Amen.